that Elaine C. Smith and David Hayman would be the kind of people that would be standing for Parliament. Do you think, well, I'll be asking that in a minute. We must go over to take the Angus declaration now. This is an SNP stronghold. It's in the northeast of Scotland. And we're waiting to hear now where the declaration of both was made, what it actually says this time in 1997.
I will now declare the result for Angus. The turnout of electors was 60.2% of those eligible to vote. Here is the result for the first ballot. The votes cast for I agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 33,571, representing 64.7% of the valid votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 18,350, representing 35.3% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 222. Here is the result for the second ballot. The votes cast for I agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 27,641, representing 53.4% of the valid votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 24,089, representing 46.6% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 413. That completes the declaration.
Makes yet another declaration there for Angus. And let's look at what it says about a Parliament. A majority of 15,000 Angus for a Parliament. And the question of tax-varying powers, much less a majority of 3,500. Now turning to the share of the vote in Angus, 65% for a Parliament plays 35 against. And 53% for tax-varying powers plays 47%. We're expecting a whole pile of results coming in soon. For the moment, we can over to John Pienaar, who's actually on his own vigil now, outside the vigil for a Scottish Parliament at Carlton Hill.
Well, Kirsty, rejoicing is very much the word of the moment. It certainly seems to be the mood of things here. The rain has stopped, but there's still very much a chill in the air, and the people here don't seem to mind a bit as they watch these results come in and take the results and take down the figures over the radio. Let's just talk to one or two of them and see how they feel about the way things are going. Can I just butt in here for just a moment? What do you make of these figures? Obviously, you're playing your kazoo there. You seem pretty pleased with them.
Playing my kazoo? Yeah, well, I don't have a great deal to say other than to say it's a monumental night for Scotland, and I think that people tonight in Scotland have spoken and have said something that they've been wanting to say for a long, long time. And I think they've said it in great numbers, and I think we'll see Scotland moving forward from today more than we can all think tonight.
What about you, your fellow kazoo player? You seem fairly pleased. What do you make of these results? They're better in many ways than seemed to be expected earlier on.
Yeah, I think obviously they had a bit of a downer on it to start with, to try and sort of think, oh, maybe it's not going to be that, that good a turnout. But I think the Scottish people have shown that they can be trusted in their decisions, and they're not stupid when it comes to money. I think they're brilliant.
Thank you. And this over there, we can just see the famous hut, the centre of the vigil, where people have stayed overnight, through the night, on many occasions, in small numbers, large numbers. We can wander over there and see how people feel now about these results. There's often a very upbeat mood in the air here at the vigil. We'll just push through here and see what... Can I just interrupt you for just a moment and just ask you, what do you make of these results coming in? Obviously, people here are in a very upbeat mood.
Yeah, very, very pleased with it. It's nice, it's solid right across the country. It's a good mandate for the new proposals. I think we're all very, very pleased about it. And
certainly, seems to be a fairly solid turnout.
Seems to be, yeah. Yes, it does. Good, yes. I think all credit to the politicians. They've given us a good package, and the Scottish people have gone for it. We can all be very proud of ourselves tonight.
This then pretty much the last night of the vigil. Do you think it served a useful purpose?
I think it's helped, yes. It's been one of many things that's created the climate for change, and we're seeing the end result tonight. So, big party tomorrow night, then the vigil packs up and we all go home.
So a big party here at the vigil tomorrow night. The celebrations will go on. You can see the mood, it speaks for itself. Kirsty, back to you.
Thank you very much. And as I can't even talk to Brian Wilson now, because in fact we're going over to Glasgow now for the declaration, the largest declaration in the country, and it's being declared in Edinburgh by Neil McIntosh. We're actually over at the Kelvin Hall. We're going to take this declaration locally. We're waiting for the returning officer to come on the stage. He approaches now. Turnout 51.6% in Glasgow.
I will now declare the result for Glasgow. The turnout of electors was 51.6% of those eligible to vote. Here is the result for the first ballot. The votes cast for I agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 204,269, representing 83.6%. 83.6% of the ballot votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 40,106, representing 16.4% of the ballot votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 1,909. Here is the result for the second ballot. The votes cast for I agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 182,589, representing 75%. 75% of the ballot votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 60,842, representing 25% of the ballot votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 2,765.
So there we see the City of Glasgow has given the highest vote in Scotland for tax-paying powers. Great cheer went up there. So for a Parliament, the majority was 164,163. And for tax-paying powers, the majority was 121,747. Now on the share now, yes to Parliament, 84% against 16%. Yes to tax-paying powers, 75% said yes to tax-paying powers versus 25%. Now we can just go over to Peter Snow and see if we are very nearly at that winning post now. Peter.
Getting terribly close, Kirsty. It won't take more than one or two more results now. Let's have the first question then. Here's the winning post. The winning post, a look at it, is 1,199,000. And then the yeses will be there. Watch the yes, not quite there. 1,121,000. Bit more to go. 381,000 of those. 74 to 25. A majority for the yeses on the Scottish Parliament of 49.2, nearly 50%. And that's the green light of the Scottish Parliament, no question about that. On tax-varying powers, watch the votes style up again. Here we are, 1,195,000. 1 million, nearly 200,000 needed. Still quite a way to go yet on the tax-bearing powers. 63 to 36, a majority for the yeses of nearly 28% for tax-bearing powers.
Thank you very much, Peter. And in actual figures now, what we're looking for, if you actually want to make the actual move to the winning post, in order to actually have that yes vote, we need 77,552 votes to be declared for yes on the first question, and I'm afraid haven't quite calculated on the second question. But Brian Taylor must be very nearly there.
I think we are nearly there, and it's the time of the morning perhaps to start quoting poetry. I mean, in some senses, just to think
steady on.
To think of W.B. Yeats, who was commenting on a very different constitutional upheaval. All changed utterly, because I think that Scottish politics will have to change massively as a result of tonight. Party politics will have to change. The Labour Party in Scotland will have to devolve power more to its own organisation and institutions in Scotland. The SNP will have to think seriously about the prospect of power sharing, perhaps in that period.
I have to stop you there, Brian, so we can go over to Fife, because this looks like the one that will take us over the winning post, and we will find out whether indeed Scotland will in fact have a parliament. The Kingdom of Fife is about to declare.
The turnout of electors was 60.7% of those eligible to vote. Here is the result for the first ballot. The votes cast for I agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 125,668, representing 76.1% of the ballot votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 39,517, representing 23.9%
So with that Fife result,
Scotland
has voted for a parliament to sit in Edinburgh on the year 2000. That is a resounding yes from Fife, which takes the result formally over the winning post. Scotland will have its own parliament. And now we can go straight over and see the pictures.
Representing 64.7% of the
And
ballot
on the second, let's just hear what the full form is of this. Is a yes vote. Let's just get the second question before we go over and see the party scenes.
58,987, representing 35.3% of the ballot votes cast. Rejected ballot papers.
So let's look at that in detail. That was the story from Fife Parliament, majority of 86,151 over the winning post, and on the second question on tax-paying powers, majority of 49,034. So Scotland has voted to have a parliament. Now we can move on now to the party. The party that we have, Scotland has a parliament. There's the Scotland Forward Party, as everybody realises now that formally the votes have come in. Great scenes of jubilation there now, and then outside at the Vigil, the waiting for them is over. The long wait of the last 5 years is over. So, Peter Snow, just tell us exactly how that happened. That is it, that Scotland is to have a parliament.
Let's just watch how Fife did it then. Here we go. Here's the first question, and the decision has been made. No question about it, decisively, with quite a few results still to come. Watch the yeses going up there through the winning post, through the 1198,000, 1247,000, clearly through it, 74 to 25, a yes majority of 49.6%. Scotland has given the green light, the yes, to its own parliament, as the building that we suggested could be like. Great competition among the architects will now start. But we've just given you a little modest suggestion here. Here is the Parliament chamber. So now, for the first time in nearly 300 years, Scotland will have a parliament, provided the House of Commons legislates for it. Not much doubt about that. And it will, of course, be an evolved parliament within the United Kingdom. The flag is still up there on the wall. And we think it's pretty certain, too, in fact, we're quite sure, that they will also vote themselves the tax-varying powers to open that safe there and see the money inside. But we're still going to wait to be absolutely sure before that second vote crosses the winning post before we open the safe.
Now, the mandate that we forecast early in the evening, Brian Wilson, when do you think that you will begin work on the bill?
That work, I'm sure, is going on just now. And I just say I'm very, very proud to be a member of a government which has delivered this to Scotland through a referendum, allowing the Scottish people to speak for themselves through the ballot box, and that they have delivered such a marvellously comprehensive result which gives the Parliament a degree of legitimacy and credibility which would not have been possible without this referendum and the chance for the people to speak so strongly.
As we can see those scenes there at the Vigil, Annabel Goldie, do you now agree with Brian Wilson this Parliament has a resounding legitimacy?
Well, it certainly has a legitimacy, and I mean, whatever our individual views may have been before the referendum, Kirsty, by any standards, this is a historic moment for Scotland. It is really quite breathtaking.
Do you agree with Donald Dewar that he can't imagine now how anyone could obstruct the passage of this bill either in the Commons or the Lords?
I think it would be quite unthinkable that the bill would be obstructed, Kirsty. I think there are aspects of the bill which will have to be tested. That's an entirely different matter. And I think in the interest of democracy, I'm sure Brian would agree with this, there will be aspects of the bill that must be examined closely, but it cannot be opposed.
We must pause and let both the Liberal Democrats and the SNP have their say at the very moment when Scotland is indeed to have a parliament. We're about to have the border declaration, so we'll come back to you in a moment for your views on that. And now let's take the declaration from the borders.
I will now declare the result for the Scottish borders. The turnout of electors was 64.8% of those eligible to vote. Here is the result for the first ballot. The votes cast for I agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 33,855, representing 62.8% of the ballot votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 20,060, representing 37.2% of the ballot votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 273. Here is the result for the second ballot. The votes cast for I agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 27,284, representing 50.7% of the ballot votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 26,497, representing 49.3% of the ballot votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 382.
So the borders have vindicated David Steele's view that they would indeed vote differently this time. And for a parliament, the majority was over 13,500. And the majority for tax-varying powers doesn't take us over the formal winning post on tax-varying powers. The majority was 787. Let's look at the share there. The share, 63% for a parliament, plays 37%. And on tax powers, very narrow, 51%, plays 49%. Now, after that Borders Declaration, let's go back now to John Swinney. John, unprecedented cooperation between yourselves and Labour and the Liberal Democrats to deliver this vote tonight.
Well, I'm absolutely delighted by the result tonight. I think it has vindicated the degree of cross-party cooperation that we have had in the last number of months to ensure that we delivered such a resounding endorsement of the proposals that have been on offer to the people of Scotland in today's referendum. I think it sets Scotland on a very exciting course where we can build a new future for Scotland and can actually unleash the potential and the talents of our country to their full potential. I'm delighted by the result, and I think it's a great vindication.
Do you think that you have a responsibility? Do you think you have a responsibility to the electorate to perhaps conduct politics in a more consensual manner and not have all the sniping and carping that has characterised so much of Scottish politics in the past?
Well, I think there's obviously been a lot of lessons learned in the last number of weeks about the advantages that can come from cross-party cooperation. It is up to the electorate to decide if that is the type of politics they wish to maintain.
Charles Kennedy, the BBC is predicting that each of Scotland's 32 councillors will deliver a yes vote on the first question.
Excellent. Well, I think that's very good news indeed, and I think in joining in the general celebration that the issue is now settled, we're going to get this Parliament, I think it should be acknowledged that the input going back a number of years to when the convention started, leading to all of this, of the Liberal Democrats is very important, because I think one of the reasons that the outlying areas have come in so strongly is that the guarantee of proportional representation has acted as a safeguard. I think the other point is that we're celebrating in a generous, good-spirited way in Scotland, and I don't think you'll see south of the border the rather mean-spirited response that we saw from those rather untypical commentators in the studio. I think most people in England will look at this not in an envious way, but in fact in a rather enviable way in the best sense of the word, and they'll say, if it's going to work for them, let's have some of this rolling constitutional reform for us too. That's the real UK lesson that's coming through here tonight.
Well, let's go over to the Edinburgh Conference Centre, where Anne Mackenzie is joined by Alex Salmond and Michael Ankrum.
Indeed, Kirsty. Alex Salmond, the first Scottish Parliament for 300 years, and it looks as if Scots are going to be the first population to vote for more tax.
Well, done it with a bang and not a whimper. This is a tremendous night. The second question, I mean, I can't find any example of a population voting for a question head-on. It's the most difficult question of all, and the majority in the second question exceeds everybody's expectations. I think demonstrate that the will was there, and the last 4 days of the campaign swept the Yes campaign to victory.
Michael Ankrum, it certainly looks as if it is, all over, not even bar the shouting. Does this now mean that you are going to accept that the bill is going to be with the popular mandate of Scotland? You are not going to in any way attempt to hinder it through the Commons?
No, well, obviously we respect the democratically arrived at view of the Scottish people, and we've always said that we would. Our job was to make sure that in coming to their verdict they took into account all the inherent weaknesses, dangers and flaws that we saw within these proposals. But now that that has been done, I have to say I'd prefer to have seen a referendum after legislation when they could have seen all the detail. We will have to look very closely at the bill. We believe there are areas, for instance, the so-called West Lothian question, the role of Scottish MPs in Westminster after a Scottish Parliament is up and running, which could be very destabilising to the United Kingdom.
But it looks as if you've presented these arguments to the Scottish people and they don't appear to have been impressed.
Yes, but in terms of the integrity and the stability of the United Kingdom as a whole, these are going to have to be addressed within the legislation, and we will be seeking to do so.
Okay, Mr. Ankrum, I'm sorry, as you can hear, we're about to have another declaration. We think we're expecting it to be East Ayrshire, which Neil McIntosh, yes, appears in his traditional stride onto the podium. We should be able to find out any minute now whether East Ayrshire has matched what everyone else in Scotland appears to be doing tonight.
East Ayrshire. The turnout of electors was 64.8% of those eligible to vote. Here is the result for the first ballot. The votes cast for I agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 49,131, representing 81.1% of the valid votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, sorry, my apologies, 11,426, representing 18.9% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 307. Here is the result for the second ballot. The votes cast for I agree that the Scottish Parliament should have tax varying powers, 42,559, representing 70.5% of the ballot votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that the Scottish Parliament should have tax varying powers, 17,824, representing 29.5% of the ballot votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 474.
And there is the East Ayrshire vote. East Ayrshire that takes in Kilmarnock. We're still short of the votes to secure the second question by about 50,000. Neil McIntosh making his 25th declaration, his first stumble of the night, which is more than can be said for the rest of us. Now let's just look there. Majority of over 37,000 for a parliament, and in tax varying powers, a majority of over 24,000. Let's look at share. There we are, 81% for a parliament and 70% plays 30% for tax varying powers. And straight back to Annie in Edinburgh.
Thanks, Kirsty. Well, no surprise there, gentlemen. Michael Ancram, we were just hearing from Charles Kennedy there that he thinks that the English are going to look upon this far more positively than many people like yourself have been saying they will.
I mean, I don't think any of us could say other than we must now wait to see the legislation. I'm not in the habit of signing blank cheques. We haven't seen the full detail of this scheme, and it's incumbent upon us and upon everybody in Parliament to ensure that the legislation is going to be as favourable as it can.
You have a pretty fair idea what's coming with the white paper, haven't you?
Yes, but let me give you one example. I mean, towards the end of the campaign, there was talk, and I think Donald Joe himself admitted that there were powers available to the Scottish Parliament to alter or change certain indirect taxes through local government. These are sort of matters which I think we're going to need to explore so that we make sure we get them right. And there are, as I say, areas which I think are going to create what Malcolm Rifkin last night described as a generation of constitutional instability. Those are matters which we wish to look at in great detail to see whether there are ways in mitigating those dangers. Because I'm a unionist. At the end of the day, I want to see the union preserved. It may not suit Alex Salmond that, but Donald Joe tells me he's a unionist too, and if I can persuade him that there are areas which are going to undermine the stability of the union, I hope he will look at them closely with us.
I think that Donald's probably just recovering from having the pact with me. The idea of having a pact with Michael Ancram on this, the
but
moment
at least we'd be on the same side as far as the union.
They are both unionists, aren't they?
You argue that, Michael, but you see, the position that developed in this campaign was that the Yes campaign, all of us, Donald, myself, Jim Wallace, all of the Yes campaigners trusted the judgment of the people of Scotland. And why Michael and his colleagues have gone down to such spectacular defeat is they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't trust the people. So it's hardly surprising that the people won't trust them. Now, I think the points that Michael makes are very dangerous ones. I mean, we've had the referendum. He didn't want to have it. I didn't want to have it, for that matter. But we had the referendum. The people have voted resoundingly. If the Conservative Party now carry their campaign forward to trying to block and tackle particular aspects of the legislation instead of accepting the verdict, then even PR won't give them any seats in this new Scottish Parliament.
Okay, Mr. Ancram, for the moment. Once again, we have another declaration. North Ayrshire this time, which includes Largs, Ardrossan, Sawcoats on the Clyde coast, also the holiday islands of Arran and Millport. Here's the count.
For North Ayrshire, the turnout of electors was 63.4% of those eligible to vote. Here is the result for the first ballot. The votes cast for I agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 51,304, representing 76.3% of the ballot votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 15,931, representing 23.7% of the ballot votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 327. Here is the result for the second ballot. The votes cast for I agree that the Scottish Parliament should have tax varying powers, 43,990, representing 65.7% of the ballot votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that the Scottish Parliament should have tax varying powers, 22,991, representing 34.3% of the ballot votes cast. Rejected ballot papers 571.
There we have it. The Clyde Coast verdict still leaves us almost 17,000 votes short of a verdict in question 2. This is Brian Wilson's territory. Let's look at that result now. A majority of 35,000 for Scottish Parliament and a majority for tax varying powers of almost 21,000 and a turnout of 63%. Let's look at the share. For Parliament, 76% against 24%, and for tax varying powers, 66% for, 34% against. And now we can go over to Edinburgh and join John Sopel, who's with some of the party goers outside the Scotland Forward Party. John.
Thank you very much indeed, Kirsty. Well, it might be a sober atmosphere in the exhibition centre, but it's a little less sober here. Let me talk to some of the people, the revellers here. It's been a good evening so far.
Yeah,
pretty good. Only pretty good.
We've had fun.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. OK, let's talk to a few more people here. You've been dancing a bit as well this evening, haven't you?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So you've got a Scottish Parliament?
Yes, but I'm English, so I feel the least I said, the better.
You're English?
Yes, indeed.
Were you voting up here?
No, I wasn't. I was just here to help because I thought it was important that we got a democracy for Scotland after 290 years.
Where did you come up from then?
Manchester.
And what, you've been up working up here, have you?
Yes.
Right, let's move along and find all these people with their sultar and their... Yes. What sort of evening has it been so far?
Oh, it's been tremendous. This is like May the 1st with icing on the cake. A tremendous night for Scotland, a tremendous night for the Labour Party.
Yeah!
You said a tremendous night for the Labour Party, but it was the Liberal Democrats as well. It was the Scottish Nationalists as well.
Sure, but the Labour voters in Lanarkshire, in Glasgow and Edinburgh, all across the country, they delivered tonight. We waited 25 years for this moment. You know, it's a dream become reality. It's just tremendous for Scotland.
But the whole spirit of the Scotland Forward, this party tonight, has been that it's been an all-party thing. That's not going to last, is it?
I agree. It's been all-party. You know, today, in our stall in the middle of Edinburgh, we were giving out SNP leaflets, Liberal Democrat posters. This has been an all-party campaign. But Donald Dewar and Tony Blair have delivered tonight. They've delivered for Scotland.
What do you think?
I agree. I think it's been a tremendous result. It's better than we could even have anticipated. We could have hoped for. It's a great victory for Scotland. And I agree, Donald Dewar deserves the majority of the credit in this. He has been absolutely tremendous, statesmanlike, and I hope that he'll be the first leader of the Scottish Parliament.
Right. Let me just try and come over to a couple of the people in the back here. You can't say anything.
No, we can only sing. Okay, let's sing. So come all ye that came with freedom, never ye what the British call for doom, and the rooms of rings of Adam will find free, body free and painted room.
Well, I think, Kirsty, that gives you some flavour of the atmosphere here. People seem pretty content with life. Kirsty.
Well, let's move over to more revelry now, and we can move over to Vigil, where the pipes are being played. Of the song. Brian Wilson, can we just have a little bit of reaction to you for some of the scenes we've seen there?
To some of the scenes? Well, I think,
Candidates for Scottish Parliament, do you think?
Well, I don't think there's going to be any shortage of them. And it's from some of the people who are volunteering. From some of the people who are volunteering, I think it's going to be the best Christmas party in United Kingdom politics.
But what we were saying earlier about people like Elaine C. Smith and David Hume, now all these people are coming forward to say they want to be members of Parliament. Donald Dewar did say after the Paisley issue that in fact that the candidates were very closely scrutinised and they were wanting people from the broader areas of Scottish life.
Oh, well, I think that's absolutely right. And what I have found in Labour Party terms is the range of people who are saying now that they are going to put their names forward for the Scottish Parliament. People who wouldn't have thought of Westminster, and I think there's going to be a great upsurge of new talent coming into Labour politics through the Scottish Parliament, and let's make the most of that.
Not least Annabel Goldie. Now let's go over to Peter Snow.
Well, Brian Wilson and all the Yes campaign do have an awful lot to celebrate tonight. There's no question about it. It's a stunning success for the Yeses on both counts. On the Scottish Parliament, question 1, there are the votes stacking up. There's the winning post that the Yeses had to pass through 1,200,000. There they go through the 200,000. It's now, with a few results still to come, on nearly 1,400,000. The Noes right down there, less than 500,000. 74 to 25%. A Yes majority, a green light to a Scottish Parliament by 49.4% so far, and there's more to come. Of the tax-varying powers, now, have we got through the winning post yet? Not quite. We're just approaching it very quickly. 1,197,000 votes required. It's up to 1 million. It's through 1 million. It's not quite to the 1,197 yet. Turnout 60.2%, 63.9 to 36.1. Very nearly through the winning post. One more result will do it. A Yes majority of 27.8%. And just a very quick look now at the story round the regions, round the local counts in Scotland. There's the record held by West Aberdeenshire, and it is 70% majority for Yes on the Scottish Parliament. Glasgow City coming up with a really hefty surprise, 67% majority there. Clackmannan did hold the record. It's now been outclassed by the other ones. As you go down, so the majorities for the Yes get smaller. Nevertheless, they're shocking great majorities for Yes. It's the green light from all these parts of Scotland. Stirling, Morris, South Ayrshire. Now we're getting down to the rather more slender majorities. They're still pretty impressive, even when you think Scottish Borders and other places that found against the Scottish Parliament last time. Dumfries and Galloway and Orkney, the lowest majorities for. Here we have now the tax-varying powers, looking at it again by local area. 50% for Glasgow. Again, Glasgow taking the top prize there for the biggest Yes majority so far. And then down they go there to still looking pretty impressive after the bottom of the second column, City of Edinburgh, 24%. And here are the most narrow ones of all: Moray, the Shetlands, East Renfrewshire, Perth, and the Scottish Borders. Just the tiniest little majority there for the Scottish Parliament. And the only no's we've had then, Dumfries and Galloway and Orkney saying no, but only just no, to tax-varying powers.
Peter, thank you. And there's 6 results left. And what we've heard from Jackson Carlaw tonight, the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party in Scotland, he has said tonight is a watershed for Scottish politics. With that, over to Anne Mackenzie, who has Donald Dewar with her.
Yes, thanks, Kirsty. Donald Dewar joins us again. Someone was telling us earlier, Donald Dewar, that you were actually getting bored with the sheer monotony of these results. It all seems to have been so very easy.
Oh, if you had seen me at 4 o'clock this afternoon, the rain coming down and the polls were apparently very low. But I misjudged it. People were determined to vote. They came out in great numbers, and it's a deeply satisfying, a smashing series of results. I'm interested to hear the Vice Chairman of the Conservative Party conceding it's a really significant occasion, and I think that's absolutely right. We're going to do great things, and we've got the endorsement of the people. We can go on from here positively and constructively.
We just heard Michael Ancram, the Tories Constitution Minister, saying that they still wanted to scrutinise this very, very carefully and perhaps make as many amendments as they could. Do you think that's fair?
I've no objection to Michael as long as he does it in a constructive fashion. Of course, the bill will have to go through a process of examination, and if people want to make suggestions for improvements, fine. But at the end of the day, there's no place for obstruction. There's no place for filibustering. For barrack room lawyers simply trying to hold up progress, because the people have spoken in the clearest possible way, and I don't think that their voice can be ignored by any responsible politician in either house.
And is there any way that the basic tenets of the bill can be amended? For example, that 3p on the basic rate of income tax. There have been some suggestions that that might be fiddled with in committee.
No, we've put a scheme which I believe has internal coherence, which offers stability, which has a logical division of responsibility between Edinburgh and London. And we're going to deliver it. That's what we've been asked to do by the people of Scotland. We took the whole question of consent head on, and we've had a resounding endorsement. The Labour government's policy is now the people's policy, and we are going to make sure that we have that Parliament up and running and elections in the first half of 1999.
Much has been made of the consensus between the three parties. A lot of people have said how very encouraged they were by the way you've all managed to work together. But one of your MPs, Callum MacDonald, you may have heard, described the SNP earlier on as midges, always around but never taking control. What's your reaction to that?
It's a picturesque phrase. I want to work with people where there's agreement. What happened here was that we had the scheme that I've described to you. We put it forward. We asked people to endorse it with a yes-yes vote. And we didn't stop to ask people what party they came from or if they came from any party. People were prepared to get in behind in very, very large numbers. I mean, the figures behind us on the screen are totally decisive. And I'm just very, very pleased that we start with the impetus and the moral authority that those kind of majorities give us.
But surely now you can admit that for the nationalists, it's not in their interest, is it, for this Parliament to satisfy the aspirations of the Scottish people? They will want people to go further.
Yes, of course they will, and they've wanted people to go further for the last, I suppose, 50 years, certainly throughout my political lifetime, and they've never succeeded in persuading Scotland. I think they'll find it very much harder now. I don't think they can do it, but that's a matter for people in Scotland to make their decisions at future elections. Once, I suppose in October 1970, the Scot Nats got a very high vote, 70%. Sorry, what am I talking about? 30%. 30%. It's late, have you noticed?
It's been a long day.
It's been a long day. They got 30%. Since then, they've declined quite a way. They got 21% at the last election. I think the fact that we've been able to show the flexibility of the British Constitution, that we've been able to produce a much stronger voice for Scotland within the United Kingdom, I think will go a long way to make it harder and harder for them.
But this Parliament will make them a very credible force in Scottish politics. They will be the second biggest party. They will be, assuming that you are in charge, the main opposition.
Well, I think in some ways they've been trying to be the main opposition for a long time.
And this will give them
well, no,
that
they make a lot more noise, perhaps, than other parties. But they've been trying to undermine our basic vote for as long as I can remember, and we've repulsed them every time. I've no doubt they'll come again, but they're not our only enemies. We quarrel and fight with the Liberals on occasions. We quarrel and fight with the Conservatives practically constantly. But what I say to you that was within that framework is that if there is a cause where we can come together, where there is a genuine agreement that the package on offer is an improvement on the status quo, then of course I will cooperate with other parties and with other people of goodwill. And as I say, they've been able to endorse the Labour government's policy. If they offer to endorse it again in the future, I don't think I'll say no.
But the big fear has to be that the Scottish Parliament in Edinburgh might well turn out to be of a different political complexion to the Westminster Parliament. Now, you've heard this argument obviously many times before. 1,000 times, yes. But in the end, that is going to make for considerable friction, especially if, for example, the Westminster government is a radical Tory administration. That is going to be rich ground for the nationalists, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. Everyone seems to be obsessed with the nationalists. I can't really see them as making that kind of successful challenge for the reasons that I've given. And if you say to me that the Scots aren't sophisticated enough, or indeed the United Kingdom is not flexible enough to accommodate a devolved form of government, then we are suggesting that they can't do what almost every other Western European country does successfully, and many, many other successful democracies and developed economies. You think of France, if you think of Spain, if you think of Germany, if you think of America, I mean, they've all got very, very substantial forms of devolved government, the passing of power out to areas of the country where people live. And it seems to me that we actually might manage to do it as well. It will be greatly to our advantage.
Donald Dewar, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And now across to Alan Mackay, who's joined by Canon Kenyon Wright of the Constitutional Convention. Alan.
Thanks, Anne. Yes, many people feel that Canon Kenyon Wright was one of the architects of bringing the parties together. Was that a difficult task for you over the years?
Well, let's say there were times when I wondered whether we would succeed, but it was a very rewarding task.
You never succeeded with the SNP, of course. That came later.
Yes, but nevertheless, the task of bringing together what was probably the broadest cross-section of Scottish society in living memory, and doing it in order to do politics by a new kind of method, has been very rewarding and has resulted, obviously, in what has happened today.
Now, the people have spoken tonight. That means the politicians owe them a great debt. Do you think the politicians that we have can deliver, because you've seen them at close quarters in the last few years?
Yes, the present government has kept its promise that the legislation would be firmly based on the work we did together in the Constitutional Convention. they will deliver.
But will they deliver on all the many issues that we hear from all the pro-devolution parties that the Scottish Parliament is going to try to sort out?
Well, no, it's up to the Scottish people and their Parliament. The legislation will create the Parliament. What the Parliament actually does with its powers is up to us, and we've got to use the next 2 years, not just waiting for Parliament to happen, but to prepare the ground for it to be one of the best prepared, most effective parliaments of the world.
Ken, you're right. I'll have to stop you there. Thank you very much indeed. Now back to you, Kirsty, in the studio.
Thank you very much. And with 6 results still to come in, including Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire, let's see what Tony Blair has had to say tonight about the results so far. I'm absolutely delighted that the Scottish people have backed our plans. I said we would deliver our promise. A new modern constitution is an essential part of the new politics and the new Britain we want to build. And now we can go straight back over to Edinburgh, because we're expecting the North Lanarkshire Declaration, one of the big councils in Scotland, in the top 5. And that result should put Scotland over the winning post on the second question. So let's have a look now. Okay, we're looking for a figure of 16,695 on the second question for a
I will now declare the result
to take you
North
over.
Lanarkshire. The turnout of electors was 60.8% of
the
those
late John
eligible
Smith's
to vote.
area.
Here's the result for the first ballot. The votes cast for I agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 123,063, representing 82.6% of the valid votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 26,010, representing 17.4% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 883. Here is the result for the second ballot. The votes cast for I agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 107,288, representing 72.2% of the valid votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree
question for a
that the
Scottish Parliament, the Scottish people have backed tax-varying powers for a Scottish Parliament.
372, representing 27.8% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 1,281.
Today we have at North Lanarkshire, yes to a Parliament by a majority of 97,053, yes to tax-varying powers, a majority of 65,916. That is over the winning post on both counts. John Smith said that devolution was unfinished business. It has been finished tonight. And now let's go straight over to Peter Snow to see what he makes of all that. Peter Snow, that is it on both counts.
Yes, Kirsty, there we are. There's the first question, 1,500,000, well through the winning post, 75 to 24, a yes majority of 50.6%. And now we have the same thing happening on the second question, tax-varying powers. Here are the votes stacking up. The yes in the front there, the green light there, and the red light behind it. 1,197,000 needed, 1,286,000 achieved. A turnout of 60%, 64 to 35. A majority for the yes then on the tax-varying powers of 29%. So, Scotland has given the green light, not just to a Parliament, but the tax-varying powers as well. So we can go inside the doors of this new building, whatever it does actually look like in the event, and open the doors to a quite new Scotland with a Parliament which now, subject to the House of Commons legislating for it, will come into effect. It'll be a Parliament elected by proportional representation. It'll be a Parliament that will have control of £14 billion worth of spending, but it'll also be a Parliament, if the Commons agrees to this as well, that'll be able to open the safe there and vary tax by up to 3 pence in the pound, and it will therefore have the power to vary tax.
Thank you very much, Peter. Now at this stage we can go over to Jeremy Vine at Westminster for a reaction from his guest. Jeremy.
Thanks, Kirsty. We're all very excited to see Peter's safe opened at long last, I must say. Thank you very much indeed. Well, 3 MPs with me. Simon Hughes for the Liberal Democrats, John McGregor for the Conservatives, Peter Hain, Minister with Labour, Welsh Office Minister, of course. John McGregor, the Conservative Party does seem to have a talent at the moment for getting on the wrong side of the argument. It wasn't that long ago you were arguing with the Princess of Wales about landmines. What has got into your party?
Well, I actually thought, and for a variety of reasons, including the relentless campaigning by the media in Scotland over 25 years, almost unanimously for this, I thought that this result was not at all surprising. And so I've always expected something like this, and I think we've got to accept it. But I think,
supported it?
Well, I think, of course, we've got to support the principle now, and I wouldn't wish to reject that. But what I think is important is that perhaps inevitably, during the Scottish campaign, the wider constitutional questions really didn't come up, and they haven't really been addressed by the government. And I think there are two in particular affecting the whole of England, for example. One is this question of Scottish MPs now being able to vote and speak and everything else in the Westminster Parliament on issues that English MPs can't in Scotland, absolutely crucial issues for most English constituents. That's got to be dealt with, and a regional assembly is not the answer, is not wanted by most regions, is never raised with me by my constituents, and is only a sop. I think this is inevitably going to drive to an English Parliament. The other issue, of course, is the over-provision of public expenditure in Scotland, which has been there for many years, and now with the Scottish Parliament, I think there'll be pressure to remove that.
And Peter Hain, people are going to start talking about this, aren't they, when they see Scottish MPs here voting on areas that English MPs can't vote on in Scotland, when the West Lothian question becomes actually something that people can look at and take examples from. There'll be more complaints, aren't there?
The West Lothian question's always been raised as a fig leaf for people who are really totally opposed to devolution, and now they've been beaten. They've been beaten absolutely fair and square in Scotland, and I hope they will be in Wales, because Wales won't want to get left behind next week.
But don't you think it's going to be strange with
I'd love to hear you
Scottish
say that
MPs
to my constituents
walking around Westminster who aren't able to vote on issues in Scotland that have been devolved to the Parliament there?
Let's just calm down about this. First of all, there's a whole range of legislation, Treasury matters, social security, foreign affairs and defence and so on, which will still be United Kingdom-wide. Those are crucial areas. Everybody will be cooperating together with that. Secondly, we are saying...
Hold on, Peter, we've got another declaration. We'll just hand back.
And Aberdeen declaring now the fourth largest council in Scotland, 27th to declare.
And in the count this evening. It has gone on for a fairly long time, and we appreciate the efforts that staff have made. Can I move now?
Just thanking yourself, it's been a very, very long night in Aberdeen.
Can I move now to the formal declaration for the referendum? I now declare the result for Aberdeen City. The turnout of electors was 53.7% of those eligible to vote. Here is the result of the first ballot. The votes cast for, I agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 65,035, representing 71.8% of the valid votes cast. The votes cast for, I do not agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 25,580, representing 28.2% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 436. Here is the result of the second ballot. The votes cast for, I agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 54,320, representing 60.3% of the valid votes cast. The votes cast for, I do not agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 35,709, representing 39.7% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 962.
For a Parliament, they've voted a majority of almost 39,500, and for tax powers, the majority was 18,600. A lowish turnout in Aberdeen, though David Denver would probably disagree, 53%. And the City of Aberdeen share, 72% for Parliament, and 60% for tax-varying powers, playing 40%. And now, very briefly, back to Westminster for a final word from Jeremy's guests.
All right. Peter Hain, Peter Hain was just answering the West Lothian question, so carry on.
I was just saying that we are modernising the whole of the Constitution, including giving greater regional power to the English regions, and that will deal with this whole question, because the Tories have lost this argument tonight. They keep losing the argument on democracy. They've always lost the argument on democracy, and this will continue through to Wales next week.
But Simon Hughes, there are still so many questions about the powers of this Parliament, the way it will act, and the fact that, for example, European matters and oil taxation will be dealt with here, big issues in Scotland. Much needs to be resolved, doesn't it?
I mean, some things have been resolved tonight. We've had a referendum for the first time for over 20 years. We have a clear result, very universally clear across Scotland. And like Peter, I share the hope that next week Wales is equally clear in its result. But John's right. There are issues like the famous West Lothian question, which are not going to go away. They've got to be resolved.
Here is the result for the first ballot.
This is the Eastern Bartonshire result.
I agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament. 40,917, representing 69.8% of the ballot votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 17,725, representing 30.2%
has already taken Scotland through the 40% barrier last time, not barrier this time, but there's more than 40% of the electorate eligible to vote have voted for a Scottish Parliament.
For I agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 34,576, representing 59.1% of the ballot votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that the Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 23,914, representing 40.9% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 487.
So the wealthy suburbs of Eastern Bartonshire, that's Mogai, Bearsden and Bishopbriggs, have voted yes to Parliament by a majority of 23,000 and yes to tax-varying powers by a majority of over 10,500. A large turnout there, 72%. Let's look at Eastern Bartonshire now. Yes, 70% to a Scottish Parliament and 59% for tax-varying powers. There we have it there. Now we can, after 29 results, go over to Peter Snow.
Only 3 to come, Kirsty. We're not going to see any red piles on that map of Scotland. These are the majorities, the green lights from all the local areas so far. The smallest ones down Dumfries and Galloway, Orkney and Shetland, even up there, there's really nothing in sight in the way of a very narrow margin for yes to the Scottish Parliament. On the other hand, on tax-varying powers, there are some quite tight races there. Moray, Dumfries and Galloway, Scottish borders, and of course we have the no in Orkney and the small yes majority there in Shetland. But on the whole, a great forest of green all over Scotland. Just a quick look at the story of how this compares with 1979. In 1979, there was a small majority, a simple majority, for a Scottish Parliament, 51.6 to 48.4. This time, of course, there's a huge majority for a Scottish Parliament, 75 to 25. And the comparison there is really quite striking. When you look at the hurdle that the yes had to climb over last time, the 40% that was set for government by backbencher who insisted that there should be a 40% of the electorate hurdle. It didn't, of course, make it. In 1979, 33% of the electorate voted yes then. This time, it's 45%. It's clearly through the hurdle. There's no question this has a further credibility of having passed through the hurdle set in 1979. So it's a big victory for the yeses, and it's a credible one in those terms, too.
Peter, thank you very much. Brian Wilson, Jackson Carlaw, the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, said this was a watershed in Scottish politics. It's presumably a watershed for Conservatives in Scotland as well. But what do you make of the enormity of the result?
Well, Donald Dewar used the words moral authority, and I think that's really the significance of tonight. It's not just a victory, it's not just a yes vote, it is this landslide in which the settled will of the Scottish people has been established. And that is important in the short term to the parliamentary process. In the longer term, it's crucial to the stability and just the authority of the constitutional settlement. And for that reason, everybody must recognise it is a landmark. It opens up huge possibilities, and I think there will be a great spirit of enthusiasm tomorrow.
Now we'll go over for the declaration of the fifth largest council in Scotland, Aberdeenshire.
For I agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 61,621, representing 63.9% of the valid votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 34,878, representing 36.1% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 560. Here is the result for the second ballot. The votes cast for I agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 50,295, representing 52.3% of the valid votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that the Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 45,929, representing 47.7% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 824.
So there, the result from Royal Deeside in Aberdeenshire area, where Alex Salmond has his constituency, has given us a result of for a Parliament, a majority of over 26,500, and on tax-varying powers, a much smaller majority of 4,366. Now we look at the share of the vote in Aberdeenshire. 64% for a Parliament plays 36, 52 for tax-varying powers against 48%. Charles Kennedy, we haven't heard much from you this evening. Most unusual, of course, not to hear much from you, but give me
The night is young.
The night is certainly young. Let's look at this phrase, settled will of the people. Do you think that this gives a mandate for a Scottish Parliament, not just in the short term, but in the long term in Scotland? Now, what we've seen in Scotland is a sea change.
Oh, I think so. And I was listening to John Mackay, who's with us on the panel, saying earlier that really, in the highly unlikely event that anybody wanted to try and reverse this at some unimaginable or unpredictable future date, you could only try and do it by means of a referendum, and you'd have as much chance now of getting rid of this Parliament as you would have of the Republic of Ireland voting to rejoin a unitary state run from Westminster. I mean, it just won't happen. So this is now a fixture in the scene for all time in the future.
Well, look, John Mackay, I'd like to put it to you that in Scotland, the Scottish Parliament might be the saving grace of the Conservatives, and indeed the Conservatives in Scotland might forge a new identity. You might have heard Robin Oakley saying earlier that there might be a split in terms of what happens once we hear what William Hague has decided to do. We'll oppose the bill, and perhaps the Scottish Conservatives wouldn't want the bill opposed. How would you play it?
I'm surprised you say that William Hague has said we'll oppose the bill.
No, I'm saying in the event.
Ah, right. Well, I think that event will not happen, because I think it's quite clear that from this result that the matter has been settled as a matter of principle.
So let's just be clear. Have you actually spoken to William Hague?
No, I haven't. But
you're quite sure that there'll be no opposition, no Conservative opposition to the bill?
Oh, no. I was about to come on to that. On the matter of principle. Yeah. I think, as far as, for example, House of Lords is concerned, we would certainly accept the manifesto position of the Labour government, and certainly we will accept that as a clear matter of principle, and the decision has been made. We would not oppose it at second reading. We would not attempt to frustrate it. We will, however, look at it pretty critically and examine it to make sure that it's as sensible as we can possibly make it for Scotland, and that it keeps Scotland firmly within the United Kingdom and doesn't let John Swinney's party drive a coach and horses between Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom. And in that, I would hope that we'll have a government on our
I'll talk
side.
to John Swinney about driving a coach and horses through in a moment, but I now want to go over to Newcastle. And of course, earlier on this evening, Charles Kennedy said that rather than English being envious of what's happening in Scotland, they might be find themselves in an enviable position. Now we can go over to Diana Medill.
Well, they're trying to assess what is going on at the moment. They're working out the implications here, what it's going to cost them, and also what sort of local government they should have in its place. Fraser Kemp, you're a Labour MP. When do you think the English backlash begins?
Well, I don't think there will be an English backlash. I think it's been a great result in Scotland tonight, and I think it's a great endorsement of the Labour government.
But what about subsidising people in Scotland?
I think
because people in Scotland get more per head of population than people in the northeast of England.
Sure, I think what you'll find, though, is this will increase the demand and the need to have regional organisations in the northeast. We want to compete with organisations like Scotland, and I think tonight's result, Labour was elected at the general election on a policy which was endorsed by the people of devolving power away from Westminster. We don't want any more 18 years of arrogance that we've seen under the last government.
So would you promise people in the northeast of England that they will get bigger subsidies as a result of tonight's result and the way that the local government will develop?
What we want to see in the northeast is that there will be a regional development agency which has been committed under the Labour government. A lot of work's going on. We need to coordinate work in the northeast and actually save on some of the bureaucracy that exists at the moment.
And John McCormack, if there is an assembly in the northeast of England, will it have enough powers to suit you?
Well, I mean, we would have to see the legislation, but certainly along the lines of Scotland and Wales, we would want similar powers to them to meet the needs of the problems and the issues within the area. So we're not against a differential regional government, as long as the regional government we get is relevant to our needs.
That's not likely, though, is it, Fraser Kemp?
No, there will be regional
With
government and a regional
tax-raising
assembly.
powers?
No, we've not
That's what
committed
he
on
wants.
tax-raising powers. But what we will see is an opportunity for the North East to have a form of government and a form of influence that it needs if it is going to compete within Europe and the rest of the United Kingdom.
Will that be good enough, Joe McCormack?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's certainly better than we've had over the last 2 decades, which has been marginalised and ignored by government. We'll have some say over our own destiny, and that's what we wish.
OK, let's turn to Martin Callanan. What do you think of tonight's result?
I think the Scots have made a huge mistake tonight.
And the implications for here?
I think the implications for here are that we have to make sure that people in the North East don't make the same mistake and also go for some sort of quasi-autonomous regional government. In many areas of the North East...
And now we can take the result from Argyll and Bute.
65%
Second
of
last
those
council to
eligible
declare
to
the
vote.
referendum.
Here is the result for the first ballot. The votes cast for I agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 30,452, representing 67.3% of the valid votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that there should be a Scottish Parliament, 14,796, representing 32.7% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 234. Here is the result for the second ballot. The votes cast for I agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 25,746, representing 57% of the valid votes cast. The votes cast for I do not agree that a Scottish Parliament should have tax-varying powers, 19,429, representing 43% of the valid votes cast. Rejected ballot papers, 306.
So Argyll and Bute taking in the islands of Mull, Islay, Tiree and Bute, after accounting 5 different centres, have now come in with their result. And the result is a majority for a parliament of over 50,500 and a tax-varying powers a majority of 6,300. A high turnout from the islands, 65%. And Argyll and Bute's percentages, 67% for a parliament and 57% for tax-varying powers versus 43%. With that, we only have one more result to come. And now we understand that we can go over and speak to Jim Wallace.
Yes, indeed, Kirsty. Jim Wallace here with me, leader of the Scottish Liberal Democrats. And the Liberals, of course, the party that have been struggling longest for Home Rule, 100 years. Not you personally, of course, Jim.
No. Maybe just look like...
We've just been hearing Simon Hughes there, though, saying that the West Lothian question isn't going to go away. We've heard people in the North East there less than totally enthusiastic about a parliament. Your answer to everything is federalism, but you can't really expect, can you, tax-varying parliaments equal to this all over Britain?
I don't think so. I don't think that will necessarily happen. Indeed, what the Welsh are being asked to vote on next week doesn't have tax powers. But I think what we say is, yes, we want to see finally Britain move to a federal structure. But the last thing we want to do is impose on parts of the United Kingdom, probably specifically parts of England, forms of government that the people don't want. That would run totally counter to...
So how do you make them want them, then?
I think there could be horses for courses. When the demand comes from particular parts of England, then I think, appropriate structures should be set up. There already is substantial devolved administrative power in England with sort of regional planning authorities, which actually needs to be democratised. But it was Spain, I think, probably in a number of the contributions that have been tonight, because it's been people have been on air for a long time, so no doubt they've had to find something to say. But Spain is often seen as a model. And there you've actually got, I think the technical term is asymmetric federalism. Catalonia has very, very substantial powers, including tax powers. There's some actually parts of Spain, the provinces haven't taken any powers at all. But as well, there's a bank of powers which different parts draw on as suits their particular needs and suits the particular wishes of the people. And I think that's the way we're probably going to develop in the United Kingdom.
Are you banking on the idea that the English might eventually get so fed up and so jealous that they want their own parliament?
Well, I believe, I wouldn't have supported the Scottish Parliament, but the fact I believe that it will work, and I believe that we will point the way as to what can be done to decentralise power in the United Kingdom. We actually have one of the most centralised governments, and I don't mean that in a party sense. I mean the system of government is one of the most centralised in any Western democratic country. It really needs to be loosened up and power taken to the different parts of the country. And I think that's something Scotland has led the way, and you could not have led the way in a more affirmative and
positive way than we've done tonight.
But what about the position of your own party? You've actually done pretty well through first past the post. You may not do maybe quite so well through PR. Isn't there a danger also that you're going to be seen as a kind of an adjunct, a baby brother of the Labour Party, which could be said to have delivered devolution?
Well, not at all. I mean, let's remember the proposals we're dealing with tonight were proposals hammered out substantially in the Constitutional Convention. Between the
But they're not getting the credit, are they?
Well,
Labour and Donald Dewar are getting the credit.
Well, no, I think people will recognise the contribution that we've made. I think one of the key points in this whole package is the system of proportional representation. It is the system of proportional representation, above all else, that has allowed this a yes vote for the principle of a Scottish Parliament in every part of Scotland, from Shetland right down to Galloway. And I think that was a very strong Liberal Democrat contribution to this package. But I mean, we have been good at getting our election results in first past the post. We actually already have in our own party proportional representation. Roughly percentages match the percentage of seats match the percentage of votes we get. We're going to have to learn new tricks about how to campaign.
The national turnout results, the number of eligible electors
nobody's quite sure
was 3,973,673. The number of electors voting, 2,401,647. And the percentage turnout, 60.4%. Also, could I say that the final result from Highland is expected in approximately 15 minutes' time.
So it's 15 minutes before we get the final result, and Anne Mackenzie is still with Jim Wallace, who might want to make a final point before we cut him off in his prime.
Indeed, still waiting. That, of course, was the national turnout that we got there.